Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a company that is fundamentally reshaping artificial intelligence, and that company is Anthropic. The whole story actually kicks off with this incredibly dramatic moment back in January 2021. Picture this: 7 key figures literally walk right out the doors of OpenAI. And we are not talking about just anyone here. We are talking about the vice president of research, the vice president of operations, and the senior researchers who actually authored the famous GPT-3 model. So you have to ask yourself, why would top executives just up and leave the most valuable AI company on Earth? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack today. Former OpenAI VP of Research Dario Amodei, who eventually became Anthropic CEO, really hit the nail on the head regarding the stakes. He said, AI could be the most transformative and potentially dangerous technology in human history. Sitting with that fact, how can we develop this in the safest way possible? Hearing that quote instantly sets the tone, right? The founders essentially walked away because of a deep philosophical split over safety versus commercial speed. They truly believed the industry was moving way too fast and prioritizing getting products out the door over putting proper safety protocols in place. So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we will look at the Great AI Walkout. Then we will explore how they designed a safe corporate DNA, look inside the model, and decode constitutional AI. Finally, we will talk about their funding, their rivalries, and what happens when these lofty ideals hit real-world challenges. Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the Great AI Walkout in January 2021. The real friction started brewing in late 2020. Dario Amodei wrote this massive, comprehensive memo at OpenAI. His main argument? As AI development was speeding up, the company just wasn't dedicating enough resources to safety. He felt commercial pressures were starting to completely override careful safety evaluations. And when the OpenAI board didn't align with his view, Dario, his sister Daniela, and 5 other absolutely crucial colleagues resigned in January 2021. Shortly after that, Anthropic was officially born. They set out to build a company fundamentally different from the one they had just left. Moving on to Section 2, designing safe corporate DNA. Now, you probably know that a standard corporate board is legally obligated to maximize shareholder value, full stop. If a new product makes money, they basically have to release it. But Anthropic took a totally different route. They registered as a public benefit corporation, or a PBC. What does that mean? It means they are legally required to balance shareholder returns with actual societal benefit. So right from day one, their mission to build safe AI was legally shielded from pure profit motives. And they didn't stop there. They went ahead and built something called a long-term benefit trust. You can kind of think of this as a Supreme Court for the company. It is made up of 5 independent members who hold absolutely zero financial interest in Anthropic. Their one and only job is to protect that safety mission. They even have the power to hire and fire a portion of the corporate board members. This whole structure ensures that even under immense pressure from investors, or say during an IPO, the safety mission simply cannot be legally overwritten. Right, let's get into Section 3, looking inside the model. So right now, most AI models are basically giant black boxes. We put data in, we get answers out, but we don't truly know what is happening in the middle. Mechanistic interpretability is honestly like popping the hood of a car to see how the engine actually decides to turn left or right. It is this incredibly complex process of mapping millions of artificial neurons to understand exactly how and why a model makes a specific decision. Because at the end of the day, you simply cannot control what you don't understand. And we actually saw this working in the real world in 2024. Anthropic researcher Chris Olah and his team released a pioneering study called Scaling Monosemanticity. They looked deep inside the Claude 3 Sonnet model and successfully identified the exact neural circuits responsible for highly specific concepts. I mean, they literally found the specific circuits for unsafe code, biased thinking, and even deception. By figuring out exactly where these thoughts live inside the model, researchers can mathematically turn them up or turn them down. It is absolutely fascinating. But as AI gets smarter and faster, we run into a massive problem called scalable oversight. Think about it. If an AI generates a highly technical 500-page document in 10 seconds, how can a human possibly review it for safety? We just can't. Scalable oversight is Anthropic's deep dive into researching methods to maintain supervision over systems that operate at superhuman speeds. It is essentially the proactive solution for when humans eventually lose the capacity to keep up with the machine. This brings us to Section 4, decoding constitutional AI. Okay, so most AI models out there are trained using thousands of human workers who sit there clicking thumbs up or thumbs down on the AI's answers. But Anthropic realized that method is way too slow and honestly prone to human bias. So they did something different. They wrote a constitution. It is based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights along with some strict safety rules. Step 1 is supervised learning, where the model critiques and revises its own answers based on that constitution. Then, step 2 is RLAIF, or reinforcement learning from AI feedback. This is where the model looks at its own outputs and decides which response best follows the constitution. The model essentially trains itself to be safe. It drastically reduces the need for human labor and makes the model's core values completely transparent. Let's transition to Section 5, funding research and rivalries. Anthropic really considers itself a research organization first and foremost. They commercialize their tools simply to fund more research. And to pull that off, they rely on 3 primary revenue streams. First up, you have individual Claude subscriptions running about $17 to $20. But their largest source of income by far is API token usage, which is where developers pay to build apps on top of Anthropic's models. On top of that, they secure massive enterprise contracts with tech titans like Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and Salesforce. These giants choose Anthropic specifically because they trust those strict safety guarantees. And let me tell you, those enterprise partnerships really add up. As of 2026, Anthropic reached a truly staggering valuation of $183 billion. A massive piece of that puzzle was a single $4 billion investment commitment from Amazon. This alone proves that investing heavily in safety research is not just taking a moral stance, it is actually extremely good business. Now, when we stack Anthropic against the competition, some clear strategic differences emerge. Anthropic focuses heavily on depth and a safety-first approach. This makes them highly attractive to heavily regulated enterprises, like those in healthcare and finance. OpenAI, on the other hand, focuses more on breadth. They prioritize rapid product development and building out a massive user ecosystem. And then you have Google DeepMind, which leverages total ecosystem integration, distributing AI instantly across billions of Gmail and Android devices. So while Anthropic regularly leads in independent safety scores, they definitely face some real challenges keeping up with the rapid, flashy feature rollouts from OpenAI and Google. And that leads us straight into Section 6. Ideals meet real-world challenges. The core dilemma facing the company right now is absolutely immense. CEO Dario Amodei actually admitted in a Fortune interview that balancing strict safety guarantees with the intense, everyday commercial pressure to release products quickly is incredibly difficult. If Anthropic moves too slowly, they risk losing major market share to competitors who might not care quite as much about safety. It is a genuine, high-stakes tightrope walk between staying true to their founding mission and simply staying in business. And a perfect case study of this exact friction is the 2026 Pentagon incident. The U.S. Department of Defense requested unrestricted use of Claude for internal oversight and autonomous weapons systems. But because of their strict constitution, Anthropic completely refused. Well, in response, the Pentagon literally labeled the company a supply chain risk. The whole matter ended up going to court, and ultimately the court ruled in favor of Anthropic. But it just goes to show that Anthropic pays a very real, very steep commercial price to uphold those safety commitments. They also face the exact same legal hurdles as everyone else in the space. This includes a massive $1.5 billion settlement with authors over copyright disputes regarding training data. So, having a noble safety mission does not magically grant you immunity from the incredibly complex, often messy legal landscape surrounding how these AI models gather their knowledge in the first place. So, why does all of this matter for you? Well, understanding Anthropic is absolutely crucial because they serve as the reference point for safety standards across the entire tech ecosystem. They essentially force their competitors to think harder about things like interpretability and constitutional guardrails. Knowing exactly how a tool like Claude is built and understanding why it might occasionally refuse a certain prompt makes you a far more conscious and informed user of the AI tools that are quite literally reshaping our daily lives. Which brings us to our final thought for today. As artificial intelligence becomes exponentially more powerful, will Anthropic's delicate balance of safety versus speed dictate the future of human history? It is a huge question, but it is one we all need to be asking as we navigate this wild new frontier. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will catch you next time.